Hi and welcome to Suansock Homestay Gardens. I'm Kevin LJ, a New Zealander living in northern Thailand who loves to garden. One of the reasons that I really love getting into my garden is that it helps me stay grounded. It helps me get in touch with a slow life that's peaceful and enjoyable. I notice so many people complaining these days that they're stressed, that they're distracted, that it's so hard to focus. And getting into the garden can help this so much. It's a simple thing just to come outside your front door or your back door and step into the garden and just be ready for peace. Now, a lot of the time when I'm in my garden, I just find it so relaxing to be out in nature. No matter how hard I'm working, no matter how much I've got to do, it's always different than being in the regular run-of-the-mill stuff that I've got to do, either sitting at my computer or out and about. Gardening helps all of us to connect with our natural environment, whether you're just walking through somebody else's garden or a public park in your city, or whether you're getting your hands into the soil and planting and weeding and doing all the other tasks that you've got to do. Getting into the garden helps us to become grounded and to stay grounded if we can get there enough. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It helps to extract us from our busy, habitual activities. When some people enter a garden, they just get immersed in this peacefulness immediately. And for others, it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort to really become grounded. And so in this video today, I'd like to share with you some of the things that I do that help me keep grounded when I'm working in the garden, and to really just to learn how to enjoy that peace. We often have guests come and stay, and one of the most common things people say, particularly when they first arrive, is how peaceful it is here. And we really value that and don't take it for granted. It is a special thing to live in such a beautiful environment and in such a peaceful environment that a lot of our guests, they'll come, if they're Thai people, they're often coming up from Bangkok. If they're foreigners travelling, they're people that have been living in cities and away from peaceful gardens, and they just really begin to relax when they come here. And it's just such a joy to see it. It's just such a lovely thing to see people to come into an environment like this, which is our home, and to really just release their stress, release the tension. Sometimes people have driven themselves. It's been a little bit tricky to find here, and especially with couples. Sometimes you can just sort of sense, oh, maybe there's been a little bit of stress along the way. But they come here and in no time they've just unwound and are just really enjoying it, particularly if they come and venture into the garden and enjoy the surroundings here. And so no matter what I'm doing in the garden, whether it's chopping back some grass that I need to transplant, or if I'm picking flowers or harvesting vegetables, I am mindful of just being at peace and just using this time as a recharge time, no matter how busy I am. And one of the first things I do, unless I'm making videos, is to leave my technology inside. It's away from me. I don't bring my phone into the garden, and as I said, unless I'm recording video like this, I'll leave all of my technology inside. Otherwise, I'm bringing out cameras and it's a little bit different, but I'm really just also getting used to going with the flow of working with my technology in the garden, but at my garden's pace, not at a frantic pace that I might be working if, say, I was working for a client or producing a video under a deadline. So leaving your technology inside, stepping away from the connection with the whole of the rest of the planet, if you like, breaking that tie and coming out into the garden helps you to really focus on what you're doing and just be present in the garden and enjoying it. like I said, whether you're working or whether you're just sitting and enjoying it, or picking some flowers or harvesting some vegetables. And so, having left my technology inside, one of the first things I do before picking up my spade or anything else is just to look around, just to observe where I am, look at the trees, look at maybe some seedlings that I've planted, enjoy the view, and just to really just take in the environment that I'm in, and get grounded, become part of it, become intentionally as slow as my environment. And so by just taking a few minutes and relaxing and enjoying it helps me to assimilate into the environment and to become a part of it. And this helps my overall work, whatever I've got to do in the garden, and there's always something to do, there's always more than I can manage, and that's okay. But to really, just to take in my surroundings before I start digging up grass that I need to transplant or whatever else it is. And this helps me to really enjoy in what I'm doing, and to relax and be concentrated and motivated to continue. And quite often, as I step out into the garden, as I'm looking around, I'm noticing things that need to be done, but I'm also noticing things that I have done that have then come out on to bear fruit or to create a more beautiful area. And this helps me to then continue to plan for the future of what else I've got to do in the garden. And so I find by just observing and taking stock of what's around me, it helps me to connect emotionally with the garden, helps me to prepare physically. If I can see a whole bunch of work that I need to do that's going to get me sweating and be hard, then that helps me to just prepare emotionally, to prepare physically and emotionally, and also spiritually. Just to be in the garden is such a peaceful place that I can just take my mind off the things that I've been thinking about previously in the day, and really just enjoy slowing down. Or if when I come out to do gardening in the morning, it's a time where I'll help prepare my mind to think through what I'm doing in the present moment, but also as I relax and get into it, then start to consider other things that maybe I've got to do later in the day. But I do tend not to think too much about that when I'm in the garden, but I find the time that I am relaxing my mind and not sort of stressing and thinking too far into the future, once I do get back to my other work, then it helps me to make clearer plans and more solid ideas, and often more creative ideas, because I've been in the garden. And I find this also too with going for a bicycle ride in the morning. That's normally the way I'll start my day. And this is my time of prayer and meditation. It's just a time of peacefulness out by myself, down in the rice fields, especially at this time of the year when the rice fields are beginning to be planted. It is just such a wonderful start to the day. And I really notice that on days that I can't get on my bike or into the garden, that I'm just not as productive. Those days are just not as fulfilling and productive as when I do start them with a peaceful start. I find being in the garden helps me concentrate too. It's a time where there's few distractions. I'm not checking my emails, I'm not looking at the internet for anything, I'm not looking at social media or seeing how my YouTube's going. And it's a time that I am able to better focus just on the now, just on what I'm doing, and thinking about, considering and contemplating the act of gardening, and just being in the beautiful environment that I live in. And so I make a point of this. I make a point of really concentrating, taking in the moment and being observant. I was thinking about it recently, that when people started gardening, They didn't have any of those distractions. There was no technology, there was nothing at all really, so their minds way back, you know, however long, whenever people started gardening, however long ago it was, their minds were far less cluttered than ours are, and so they took stock of what they were doing, and they had to. There was no YouTube to tell them what to do next or how a plant should grow or what type of soil it likes. They didn't have any of that understanding like we do. And so they must have had such a close and strong observance on the plants, particularly if they were planting food. They would have had such a strong concentration to get those plants to grow well and to figure out maybe why they weren't growing well or what to do that they could help them improve. And that learning process was so much different than our learning process is in this day and age. And so I try and connect a little bit more with that and really pay attention to what I'm doing and really observe what's going on. This grass here that I'm transplanting is vetiver grass. It's known as the king's grass in Thailand. I've got a video about this already. And I'm moving this from here because it's become too shaded now and it's in an area where we don't need it. And I kind of thought, wow, you know, I wished I'd observed this a couple of years ago, and then I could have planted it and shifted it out to the place that I'm going to plant this today, and that whole area would now have already been much more beautiful than it is, and the roots would have been down into the ground and helping the soil and helping the water situation. But because I wasn't so observant, I didn't notice these things. I didn't think about these things and consider these things. Hello, Pepe. And it is, something that I'm trying to really nurture and develop in my own self, the ability to be more observant when I am in the garden. One of the other things that I enjoy doing when I'm in the garden is just spending time contemplating, spending time thinking about maybe a book that I'm reading, maybe a conversation that I've had recently. Nothing fast-paced, usually. But just to think a little bit deeper, take a little bit more time to mull things over. It's usually not about work things, it's usually not about technical things. I'm not usually doing any intense problem solving or anything like that. It's more contemplative and maybe think of creative ideas of what I want to do for some videos or some photos, things like that. But just to be mindful and to be thinking about things that are not so stressful, things that are not part of our regular run-of-the-mill busy activities that are so often so difficult to avoid thinking about, and just to enjoy the peacefulness. And I find that being in nature, being grounded in my garden, helps me to just clear my mind, clear my heart from those distractions. And I've also really, over the years, formed a habit of being positive when I'm in the garden and being creative in my thinking, rather than worrying or rather than letting those habitual negative thoughts churn over and over and over in my mind. I will replace them, I will block them out and just make sure that my time in my garden is enjoyable and productive and creative and peaceful. And one other really important aspect that I find about being in the garden is fitness, is my physical well-being. When I'm in the garden, I feel much more grounded. It's really just such an important part for me of my life here, is to get out and to sweat, basically, because there's no time of the year here where I come and do some gardening of any amount that I am not sweating, and this is such a healthy thing to do. But it builds us physically. The more we do in the garden, even if it's passively, even if we don't do it like a hard workout, if we're just doing something like separating the grass, we're moving, we're doing things differently, we're walking around, we're bending, we're stretching, we're using so much of our bodies when we're doing gardening, and to me that's it's a much more enjoyable and much more productive thing than, say, going to a gym or just going for a run. As I mentioned, I also enjoy cycling. I also enjoy still getting out on my bike as many mornings as I can, and that's most of them. But getting into the garden is just a really good supplement for that as well, because oftentimes I am working hard. I'm digging things, I'm planting things, I'm moving things. I've been cutting a lot of firewood recently because I'm building up to getting my pizza oven more active and doing a whole week of baking, and so I need a whole lot of firewood, and I don't have a chainsaw, so that's all done by hand, and it's just all really good healthy work. It's a good workout, and it helps me just be fitter. It helps. I'm getting my heart rate up, I'm breathing better. Just the whole thing of being in the garden is such a physically helpful thing in my life. And so being in the garden, it helps me, as I mentioned, in every possible way. It helps me physically, it helps me be fitter, it helps with my heart rate and my breathing and my muscles and all those aspects. It helps me mentally, it helps me to really be more grounded in my thinking and more peaceful in my thinking and more really purposeful and managing my thoughts and remaining positive and just blocking out the negative thoughts, especially those thoughts that can get into your head, those habitual thoughts that end up on a loop that are hard to break. I find being in the garden helps me to break that cycle of negative thinking. If it's starting to occur, it's really easy just to put it out of my mind. It does take a bit of practice. I've worked hard on it. And it's a great thing that being in the garden has really, really helped me to do. And it helps me emotionally. Being in the garden is just such a cool thing. If I'm stressed, if I'm bothered about something, I'll get out of here into the garden and take a look around, be observant as I come out into the garden, and it just often will whatever I've been stressed about will melt away and be put aside to be dealt with later on. The time in the garden it's like my sanctuary. It's like somewhere I need to be from time to time, and to make the most of that time for my emotional state and my spiritual state too. I'll meditate, I'll pray, I'll just be present in thinking about things as they are right now, as what I'm doing and what I want to do isn't so much part of just what I want to do. Yeah, sure, a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking like that, but most of the time I am just really wanting to learn to concentrate more exactly on what I'm doing and really learning the benefits of that spiritually, because it just helps me to keep my mind in a place that's not so busy, that's not so frantic, that's not stressful, and this is really so good for my whole being. So being in the garden is very holistic. It's a very all of me experience, and that's something that I love it when people arrive here and they recognize the peacefulness of the garden. And I do like to think that this peacefulness in our garden is not only to do with the physical earth and the things that we grow in it, but the people who are here as well. And so this is something that's also very important to my wife, that the garden is a peaceful place, and that as we're in the garden we aim to be peaceful, we aim to seek peace and to pursue it as we're in the garden. And so I believe that when people come here and they're sensing that peace, it's a holistic thing. It's not just about being a beautiful place to be. It's because we're growing so much, we're nurturing that growth, and we're nurturing the growth not only in the plants that we grow, but in ourselves. My pigeon has just come to land on my camera there. So I hope you've enjoyed this little chat. If you found any of these things that I've been chatting about helpful, think about them and think about how you can implement them in your own life the next time you're out in your garden. And if you've got any ideas, any tips that you'd like to share of things that you do to help you remain grounded, either physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually in your garden or any other way, please let us know in the comments down below. I'd love to have a discussion about these things with you. And if you've enjoyed the video, please give us a like, give us a thumbs up. And if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can stay up to date whenever I release new videos. Thanks for watching. Hey dude, you're the star.